Welcome to the good, the bad, and the ugly. Where the mighty are fallen, the good get ugly, and there's no such thing as bad publicity. This time we chart the headline-stealing exploits of 5 paparazzi favourites. Gene Simmons certainly wasn't at the back of the queue when they were handing out self-promotional skills. When the KISS bassist rocked up on the set of The Celebrity Apprentice in 2007, he didn't miss his golden opportunity to score some free publicity for his own reality show.
I'm in the Gene Simmons business, the way he's in the Donald Trump business. Charity is important. We have to put that first, but we also have our Gene Simmons Family Jewels crew here filming this. So we also shill for all sorts of things, and everything helps everything, the top spin of it. You want to be associated with the top grade A product.
That principle is clearly behind his dedication to talking up the band he formed with guitarist Paul Stanley way back in 1972.
We do this because it's very important to us, and when we introduce ourselves with, you wanted the best, you got the best, the hottest band in the world, we believe it. You better believe we believe it.
Despite all the talk, KISS have only had one major hit single, 1979's I Was Made for Loving You, and have still yet to be nominated for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But the snub has clearly failed to put a dent in Gene Simmons' plan for media saturation. Over the past few years, he's appeared as himself in a staggering number of ads and TV comedies. He's also starred in the British reality show Rock School, as well as pumping out 4 series of Gene Simmons' Family Jewels.
I've been happily unmarried to the same beautiful girl, Shannon Tweed, who I worship, for 23 years. We've never been divorced, but that's because we've never been married. You see, there's a logic to that. The only thing wrong with marriage is one of the two tends to be a man. Ponder. The biggest cause of divorce is marriage. So there's a very simple idea in my life. They're my rules.
And at 6'2" without the heels, who could argue? Clearly, the open relationships seem to be working, for Gene anyway.
But last time I checked, the only one who ever had the right to ask me where I'm going gave me birth, my beloved mother. In return for giving me life, she's allowed to torture me until the day I die. That's a good trade. You give me life, you can torture me. No one else has that right.
After clocking the stratospheric success of the Osbournes, Gene had decided the viewing public would benefit from his pearls of wisdom and open the door to his own private life in Family Jewels. Unlike Ozzy Osbourne, who never seemed to know what day it was, Gene ruled his roost with a rod of iron.
My kids, Sophie, who's 5'10", 14 years old, Nick, who's 6'7" and 17 years old, are both straight-A students, charming human beings who don't smoke, don't drink, don't get high, just like Dad. And the reason they behave and do well in school is you're not allowed not to. That means good rules, discipline. Simple idea. Remember when you were growing up, wait until your father gets home? That's a good idea. Fear your father, love your mother.
Rather like the famous Weeble toys of the 1970s, Amy Winehouse may wobble, but she won't fall down. Over the past few years, the British soul queen has sailed close enough to the wind to have everyone crying out, "Woman overboard." But so far, she's just about stayed afloat. In late 2006, photos of a dazed and confused Amy, rat's nest beehive atop a stick-thin frame, were supplemented with reports of on-stage drug-taking and befuddled attempts to promote her record-breaking album, Back to Black. Arriving at the 2007 Brit Awards with Jamelia, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week.
It's been an amazing year for you. I mean, do nominations mean much to you?
It's very pleased to be acknowledged, definitely.
You'll be partying backstage together later?
It'll
Absolutely.
be fun, yeah, definitely.
Her alarming appetite for self-destruction persuaded top-drawer British newspaper The Times to set aside its snobbery to urge the government to force Amy into rehabilitation to save a great talent. Being a self-confessed fan of Amy himself, Prime Minister Gordon Brown may well have considered it. Still only in her mid-20s, her consistent inability to hold it together had put her on a fast train to oblivion. In August 2007, after a series of intoxicated performances, she was forced to cancel shows in the UK and Europe due to so-called exhaustion and ill health. She was subsequently hospitalized for a reported overdose of heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine and alcohol. During that period, footage of Amy apparently pulling a vial from her hair and sniffing a bump of cocaine began doing the rounds on the internet. Unfortunately, Amy's unhealthy dependencies didn't end at drugs and alcohol. Her addiction to Blake Civil Fielder, who formed the inspiration for her first album, Frankie, appeared equally toxic. Soon after their wedding in 2007, the tabloid press published photos of Amy covered in scratches and bruises after an alleged fight with Blake. Amy later defended him by claiming her injuries were self-inflicted. Powerless to talk sense into their self-destructive offspring, both Blake and Amy's fathers tried intervening through the press. While Giles Fielder Civil suggested that the best way to send a strong message was to stop buying Amy's music, Mitchell Winehouse contended that a boycott would only make matters worse.
It's not going to have any effect. If I thought it would have some effect, then obviously it would be a good idea. The people buy her albums because they like her music and they like Amy. And, you know, if we took a unilateral decision like that, not that it would be possible, all that would happen is it would force Amy and Blake closer together and feel that the world was against them even more than they feel that it is now, and it would make the situation worse.
By the end of the year, the couple had been arrested in Norway for possessing cannabis, and Blake was in prison after attempting to pervert the course of justice by bribing a pub landlord he'd attacked not to testify against him in court. Amy, who was believed to have supplied the £200,000 bribe, was devastated by his conviction and began dedicating songs to him during those concerts she did manage to make. Throughout it all, Amy, who had never made any secret of her problems with self-harm, depression and eating disorders, continued to sell millions of records and rake in the awards. Not only was Back to Black the world's biggest selling album of 2007, its aptly named lead single, Rehab, cleaned up at the Q, Ivor Novello and Mobo Awards. And in December, photos of Amy walking around London in jeans and a bra coincided with the news that she'd been nominated for an incredible 6 Grammy Awards.
Amy Winehouse.
But even as the nominations were being announced, comedian George Lopez was cracking jokes about Amy's famous flakiness. While Amy was unavailable for comment, her Back to Black producer, Mark Ronson, was sticking up for her. With everyone asserting she was a goner, he was playing against the doom and gloomers.
She's smart, and when I met her, she had just come through a really tough time, and she came right out of that, and that's why we came up with the Rehab record, and I think she's going to be fine. She's smart enough not to it away.
However, it became clear that even her most loyal disciple had lost faith when he scrapped plans to collaborate with her on the theme song for the James Bond film Quantum of Solace, due to Amy's continued problem with drugs. But even that didn't spell the end of the tattooed diva, who was snapped on holiday in early 2009 with actor Josh Bowman. With Blake filing for divorce and announcing he's the father of another woman's child, she now appears to be getting her act together and working on her 3rd album. Singing superstar Robbie Williams has been courting controversy ever since being booted out of boy band Take That in 1995. One of the singles off his debut solo album, Old Before I Die, posed the question, am I straight or gay? Raising eyebrows amongst critics and fans. Still, his anything goes attitude and famous partying lifestyle only seemed to enhance his popularity. Life Through a Lens ended up spending 40 weeks inside the UK top 10, becoming the 58th most successful album in British chart history. Never afraid of the hype, he happily played up his rivalry with Noel Gallagher from Oasis in the press and lost no opportunity to rub salt in the wounds of Gary Barlow when his former Take That colleague lost his solo record deal. Tempering such arrogance with plenty of self-deprecating humour, he named his third album The Ego Has Landed. After signing with Capitol Records in the US, he set about replicating his British and European success stateside. When the album languished at number 63 on the Billboard 200, the Ego decided to focus his efforts on those parts of the planet that had already embraced him as a star. 5 albums later, and having just set a world record by selling 1.6 million concert tickets in a single day for his most recent tour, he was lapping up the attention in Germany.
Hello. I'm very famous. There's so many people here. I must be really famous.
True to form, he didn't disappoint on the shock value front as he chain-smoked his way through the press conference, adjusted his underwear and called the media hypocrites for their treatment of fellow party animal Kate Moss.
Some people in various media groups who I have personally taken cocaine with are now talking about and saying that she shouldn't take cocaine.
By that time, however, Robbie had very publicly sworn off the illicit substances. Making no secret of his problems, Robbie had confessed to battling depression, self-esteem issues, and his addictions to drink and drugs, and had made a bid to clean up his act.
And right now I'm probably happier than I was when I was at school. You know, I loved going to school and I loved, you know, my friends, and I was happy then, but right now I'm really happy. I'm really enjoying being a pop star. It's coming out.
It was all going very well until somebody asked him why he still hadn't been able to crack the US.
And why I'm not as big in the States is because over the course of the 7 albums that I've had out, I've spent 2 months promoting my albums in America. I've actually spent longer than that in France. You know, everybody keeps going on about how Robbie Williams hasn't broken the States. You know, Robbie Williams really hasn't tried to break the States because Robbie Williams hasn't been that bothered.
His prickly response had journalists believing that they'd touched a nerve, and it certainly wasn't the first time that Robbie's sense of humour had failed him. Although he'd questioned his own sexuality in his songs, he didn't take kindly to anyone else doing it, and successfully sued 2 publishers for suggesting he was a closet homosexual. And despite claiming to be content with his lot, as he prepared to release his 6th studio album, it was clear he was still dealing with his demons.
I think maybe turning 30 and realising that there's still kind of a void in my life. Not as huge as it was, you know, but there's still, I think it might be a spiritual void.
His search for fulfillment, true love, and a break from the press led to a move to LA in 2007. One of the good things about not being successful there was he could pass by unnoticed.
I could pick my nose, scratch my arse, you know, get away with a lot of things that I wouldn't be able to get away with in the rest of the world, you know. And then everywhere else I go, I'm a pop star. And it's fun, you know, it's like being Batman.
A few months later, he underwent a spell in rehab in Arizona for a dependency on prescription drugs. And after finally enjoying some success on the US dance club charts with songs like Love Light, She's Madonna, and We're the Pet Shop Boys, he announced he was moving back to the UK again in December 2008. Since then, rumours have abounded that he could be thinking about reuniting with the recently reformed Take That. Far from denying the rumours, Robbie has fueled the publicity by sporting a new Take That tattoo and confirming that he loves the idea of being back in the gang. And with Noel Gallagher recently reviving their feud by stealing his drummer, it looks like Robbie has come full circle. Like Drew Barrymore before her, Lindsay Lohan had to grow up fast in front of the cameras. She'd appeared in so many commercials and television shows that by the age of 10, when she was cast in the soap opera Another World, she was already considered a show business veteran. A year later, she dazzled critics and audiences playing twin sisters in the 1998 Disney remake of The Parent Trap. By the time she was 18, her name was shouldering big-budget comedies like Freaky Friday and Mean Girls. She'd also launched her second career as a singer with the release of the 2004 album Speak. Dealing with so much pressure at such an early age would have been an uphill struggle for someone with the most secure of family backgrounds. But in Lindsay's precarious position, it proved an impossible balancing act. As Lindsay's career began to develop, so did tales about the show business ambitions of her mother, Dina, who ditched her job to become Lindsay's manager. And proving that he had little to offer in the role model department, her father, Michael, went to prison for a third time in 2005, convicted of unlicensed drink driving and attempted assault. No wonder Lindsay was quick to latch on to the nurturing influence of Meryl Streep, who played her mother in Robert Altman's last film, A Prairie Home Companion.
Amazing. She's an amazing woman, and God bless her, because she's taught me so much, and I love her.
But by that time, still 3 years shy of legal drinking age, Lindsay had become a stalwart of the LA nightclub scene and a confirmed member of the Trash Pack that included Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie and Britney Spears. Despite the barrage of paparazzi snaps depicting Lindsay in various stages of intoxication and undress, she didn't seem too upset about the overexposure.
I don't know if it's about being treated fairly in the press at all. I think you just have to, you put yourself in this position and you put yourself out there, therefore people are going to say what they want to say and everyone's going to have an opinion, and that's fine.
The unpredictability of her arrivals on set was put down to an array of ailments, including heat and exhaustion. Then there were car accidents and mysterious injuries. Finally, 3 weeks after her 21st birthday, just 2 weeks out of rehab and with another drunk driving case pending, she was arrested after the Santa Monica police received an emergency phone call from Lindsay's former personal assistant, who claimed Lindsay had chased her into a parking lot.
The officers did a field sobriety test. She did not pass that test. We transported her to the jail, where she submitted to a blood alcohol test, where she blew a 0.12 and 0.13%. She was charged with driving under the influence of alcohol.
The police also found cocaine in her pocket. Although she insisted the drugs were not hers, she checked into the Cirque Lodge, a drug rehab, alcohol and addiction treatment center in Sundance, Utah. Having delivered the paparazzi the ultimate headlining coup, she then upped the ante once again by getting cozy with super producer Mark Ronson's little sis. Snaps of the gal pals leaving the supermarket together and cuddling up to each other at the turntables began doing the rounds, and Lilo seemed happy to flaunt the relationship. Despite their initial shock, the media was soon praising Sam for being the much-needed stabilizing influence in Lindsay's life. Far from an evil temptress, the English-born DJ was being cast as knight in shining armor to Lilo's damsel in distress, and was credited with curbing Lindsay's famous partying ways. That was until early 2009, when rumors of Lindsay's infidelities were blamed for a rift that erupted into a full-blown split in April, when Lindsay was barred from a party for Sam's designer sister Charlotte at Chateau Marmont. A devastated and emaciated Lindsay then started showing up in interviews on The Ellen DeGeneres Show and in Us Weekly, claiming that the Ronson family were behind the split and that she still loved Sam. As his name suggests, shock rocker Marilyn Manson is all about extreme opposites. Born Brian Hugh Warner in 1969, his stage name, combining Marilyn Monroe with murderer Charles Manson, was chosen to symbolize the ultimate disturbing dualism of American culture. His zombie makeup, spooky contact lenses, outlandish costumes, and theatrical stage performances helped him and his band of the same name develop a cult following, which grew into a worldwide fan base. Rubbing politicians and religious leaders up the wrong way with his lyrical references to sex, drugs and violence has helped Marilyn Manson to 3 platinum albums, 2 of which went to #1 in America. Fanning the flames of controversy and handing the band maximum publicity ahead of their Croatian gig in 2005, protesters lobbied until the last minute in a desperate bid to cancel the concert. The Gothic giant shrugged off the incident, but on arriving in London with his then fiancée, Dita Von Teese, he laughed at the hypocrisy of the protests.
Some priests were trying to pay me not to play, but the hotel I was staying in, there were 12-year-old kids gambling and drinking beer, so I don't really see what my threat was, you know, because I don't like to gamble. I don't drink beer either. It's not good for my slender figure.
He was given a warmer welcome at the annual Kerrang Awards, where he was honoured with the prestigious Icon Award.
I mean, the thing about Manson that I've always liked is that, you know, he's challenged the mores of America continuously through his music, and it's really important. There's a long, long history of satire and of challenging basically the society that we live in that goes back like 500 years within art, and Manson is, you know, spearheading all of that now.
Having shaken things up with his music, the man in the makeup mask was preparing to take on the art world. In 2006, he opened up an art gallery and sold his own watercolors.
Because I use a children's watercolor kit for a lot of my paintings. That's why they're very bright. People probably imagine if I painted something, it would be like in dog feces or blood or something. But there is blood in some of them. But the only other medium that I've really incorporated recently is, besides like other types of paint, I put absinthe a lot of times in my paintings.
Although he'd never intended to part from his paintings, he felt driven to share his art and was happy to whack price tags ranging from $8,000 to $35,000 on his infantile art, which he sells under the banner of the Celebritarian Corporation that boasts the slogan, "We sell our shadow to those who stand in it." The next medium on his hit list was film. Phantasmagoria, The Visions of Lewis Carroll, which he produces, directs and stars in, marks Marilyn's attempt to revolutionize horror.
It is a horror film, but it's hard to, you know, really acknowledge that when you feel almost ashamed to associate yourself with a genre that's becomes, you know, rather cliche, but it's then a challenge to redefine the genre. So I'm going to make something that's very, very unsettling, but also very, I think it's kind of romantic in a way, because he just has this obsession with the idea of a girl, and so she's more than just Alice, you know. She ends up playing like one person's obsession with everything you could want in someone, because he had no one, and he died alone, and so it's a very lonely story.
The same can't be said for Marilyn, who split from Dita had barely hit the gossip pages when he was snapped canoodling with 19-year-old actress Evan Rachel Wood. The controversy deepened when the pair got hot and heavy in the video to Marilyn's single Heart-Shaped Glasses. After taking some time off to pursue their careers, they reunited again at the end of 2008.